I believe that Gran Turismo is at a crossroad, and unfortunately a big part of that has to do with the constant addition of SUVs in recent updates. And on top of that, we are not getting any meaningful new content. No new tracks, nothing beyond the usual daily races, and not even any new championships in online mode being introduced. So in this video, I'll break down my thoughts on the current state of Gran Turismo. We'll take a closer look at the recent updates, the cars that have been added, and I guess I'll dive deep into the online structure to discuss what it really means for the players and how it could actually improve. So let's begin. Looking at the full car list in Gran Turismo 7, there are a lot of cars that are just not being used, but quite a few of them actually feel outdated. Even with the latest updates, many of the newly added cars don't really fit into the competitive online racing scene, or I would say any kind of racing, to be honest. Some are 10 to 15 years old and they are presented as if they're supposed to be used on a regular basis. The core of online racing still revolves around Group 3 and Group 4, and in the latest few updates we haven't really received any meaningful new race cars. In fact, I don't think we had a proper race car added into the game in months, I think even last year. Instead, we keep on getting those limited edition models that don't really make any kind of real impact on the game. To be fair, the updates are free, and that's something a lot of other games don't offer. So I'm not here to complain about free content. The concern is more about the direction where this game is heading, especially the online GT mode. There might be actually a good reason for this, and I'll get to that. But the pattern lately has been just in adding content that seems to be used mainly for time trials, and you just use it for a couple of weeks, even days, and you just completely forget about it after that. The last time we got a genuinely exciting cars was probably in the update 144 and 55. So update 155, we had some physics changes, the new Sophie AI features, the Gran Turismo F3500A, and that car closely resembles a real Formula car. We also saw that Toyota GT1 from 1999 back in March 2024. Sure, it's not the newest, but it's really, I would say, a huge part of the whole car culture in Gran Turismo, and I actually like that car. But here's something that I'm going to say that comes with the SUV problems. In the nearly every update since then, we've had an SUV getting into the game. This time, it's the Nissan Qashqai, completely with, I'm just going to say with artificial sound. We got a Peugeot 2008. Before that, in the update 159, it was the Honda CR-V. And of course, the infamous Kerry KC from 2012. So the real question is, who's actually driving these cars? They appear for a week and then I guess they just vanish from the online lobbies and time trials. They're not being used, and it's hard to imagine that anyone would ever want to race an SUV. Still, I don't really think that it's all bad news, because we are getting regular free content. But what is really going on out there? So from my perspective, it seems like Polyphony Digital has shifted its focus to the next title. Maybe it's going to be GTA 8 or something entirely new. But it seems like they're appointing a lot of resources into the development of the future game. In the meantime, they seem to be kind of prioritizing brand collaborations, perhaps because it's financially beneficial for them. These SUVs, and let's call them lifestyle cars, are just an automaker's way of saying, okay, we should promote that car. But really, it's not for a racing game. And I believe that revenue might be helping to fund the next game, which is kind of a positive thing. I don't think I'm the only one feeling this way, but every time there is a new update, I'm expecting something new, something genuinely fresh, and when it arrives, I guess it's just a couple of new cars and this maybe limited edition time trial with that car, and after a while, it's just forgotten. I'm just completely lost in all of those updates and all of the SUVs we've gotten so far. Sure, some might explore it further, but for me, it just ends there. After a couple of days, I'm done with those cars because they really don't make sense for me. And we've also had quite a bit of BOP updates recently. For those unfamiliar, BOP, or balance of performance, is the system that tweaks the car's weight and power output to level the playing field. The idea is to balance the car across categories so they can actually race competitively, regardless of the manufacturer or the era. I know PD has put in a lot of effort, and I'm going to say a lot of effort into making it right. But some of the cars are 20 to 30 years apart, and I would say that it's almost impossible to balance the BOP that way. So this brings me to another point, which is a category problem, something that Super GT brought out. And the more cars you add, the more complex balancing those cars get. And when the cars are decades apart in design, technology, and handling characteristics, it becomes almost impossible to make the truly competitive environment in that category. This is why I think the current class system just needs to be expanded. We need more defined categories, and those categories should contain fewer, better balanced options. And, well, newly added cars into the game, I guess. The game definitely has potential, and with the car culture influence, like for example something that we recently saw in their latest feature, they just wanted to showcase the most important cars in the history, which I believe that it's a really good thing. But I guess we just need more meaningful content, better car class structuring, and of course fewer those kind of filler cars. I mean, basically, we're talking about SUVs that eventually you're going to drive for, let's say, a week, and you're going to completely forget about it. Well, there is no official record. I estimate that Gran Turismo has sold just about 15 million copies. Weekly online participation exceeds 100,000 players, and that's massive for a racing title exclusive to PlayStation. And why is this actually good and bad at the same time? I think those numbers speak for themselves. In general, players who are interested in this game genuinely enjoy playing it. But the real issue comes in for anyone who's actually trying to be competitive here. And that's where I believe the real problem starts. I truly believe that the online mode is underutilized, and unfortunately this is likely due to the overall structure of the sport mode. In general, I think a major factor is the way that Gran Turismo World Series are set up. So what is exactly Gran Turismo World Series and how does it actually work? In short, the Gran Turismo World Series is a flagship esports competition, an elite event where the top players from around the globe battle it out at the highest stakes. Offline races. And these events are the pinnacle of Gran Turismo competition, bringing together the best of the best in, I would say, stunning venues, and those production crews that are actually making this possible is just on another level. Well, only a handful of players actually make it to the World Tour. For 2025, just 12 players qualified for the Nations Cup, and 3 of those players were actually pre-selected. And I have to say that actually getting into the Nations Cup has been more difficult than ever. So the real question here is, why is something that is so important to Gran Turismo community so inaccessible? And I believe that the biggest issue here is visibility. Unless you're one of those few elite players who are actually competing on live events, you don't get noticed. You just don't. The finals of the World Tour Series break just about 200,000 views on YouTube, but that only happens 3 times a year, and it's usually the World Finals. Compare that to, let's say, iRacing, where you will always get some kind of streaming. So it's a content that it's always available to you. And this just opens up a space for leagues and brands. And I guess you start to see that potential that Gran Turismo is unfortunately not using. But iRacing regularly partners with hardware brands and leagues to host their own series. These events draw in fans and give the players the chances that they could actually do something and get some kind of visibility. Gran Turismo, however, is stuck with just 2 major series and I guess the Toyota Cup, but that's no longer with us in 2025. But what happens if you don't qualify? What if you're just outside of the top 12? What if you miss on representing your manufacturer just by 1 position? The harsh truth is that nothing happens. There's no visibility, no spotlight, no backup plans. You might be one of the fastest drivers in the world, but if you're not officially in, you're essentially invisible. You don't get featured, you don't get broadcasted, you simply don't get the chance to build a name for yourself and attract some possible sponsors. And unless you're already creating content and doing some coaching, for example, or have something on other platforms, it's incredibly difficult to make a name for yourself, even if you're best of the best, the world-class bass player. And that's probably one of the reasons I've made so many videos with world champions, people who are actually can compete with sometimes, don't get me wrong here. I may not be there myself, but I'm creating content around it, which in some ways is even more valuable for me. And that's actually the real issue. There is no structure to support or showcase, I'm going to call them almost qualified drivers. No way to grow your profile, no system that will actually help you move forward unless you're already made it to the top, or I guess if you're a content creator and you just, I guess, make a name for yourself on YouTube. And that's exactly what needs to change. Why not let hardware manufacturers or sim racing leagues host official series with Gran Turismo? They wouldn't be just a one-time event. They would be weekly or even year-round events. A 4-week series, sponsored and structured, could bring new life to the platform. Players would get more chances to compete, and the developers could generate some more new revenue by giving the fans new content. But let's think of something bigger, so to say. Seasonal leagues, spring series, summer series, autumn series, or even winter series. And those weekly races that award points, similar to how daily races work, but I'm going to say with long-term stakes and actually consistent structure. These would bridge the gap between casual play and the elite competitions. And what about visibility for, I'm going to call them, up-and-coming players? Offline competitions could be the key. Not every player can make it to the World Series, but there are still a lot of players that deserve recognition. And I'm going to say, let them race. Broadcast them on the official Gran Turismo YouTube channel just to give them more visibility they deserve. Let them build a name for themselves. And of course, this opens up the doors to team sponsorships, content creation, and of course, community growth that Gran Turismo, I believe, needs. And I would say that there's so much untapped potential. Imagine Logitech or any other major brand partnering with Gran Turismo to supply, for example, webcams, headsets, and of course, support the players' series. And this exposure would be huge for the brand. And of course, it would be even bigger for the players because they will actually get the tools and the platform they need to grow. And this is the massive potential here. Partner with brands, create unique series around specific cars like we saw with Mercedes, but this time actually broadcast them. Give players something real to aim for, even if they're not in the top 12. And I believe this would increase player visibility, boost brand exposure, and of course, keep the community engaged. And to be clear, Gran Turismo has already done some incredible things. GT Academy, the path of players, for example, like Igor Fraga. And those are, I'm going to say, the massive milestones in sim racing history. But I believe that we can even go further. And of course, you can let me know your take on all of these topics and how would you actually expand this, and if there is even more additional value that I probably did not see in this video. So until the next time, thank you very much guys for watching, and well, let me know what you think about it down in the comments. Bye.